We're almost finished with this very long chapter. Let's talk about exchange rates, what I want you to know. And we covered this way back in chapter 1, but let's review this a little bit. Okay, what is a weakening currency? A weakening currency. All right, weakening means it takes more of one currency to buy a unit of another currency. If one currency is weakening, that means the currency against which it is weakening is strengthening. And it means the weakening currency, it takes more of that currency to buy the other currency. So let's use the yen, the Japanese yen, and the American dollar. If the American dollar is weakening, the question is weakening against what? Is it weakening against the yen, or is it weakening against the euro? The US dollar could be moving in one direction against the euro and moving in another direction against the yen. So when you start talking about a weakening versus a strengthening currency, you have to also follow up with which currency are you pairing it against, okay? So let's use the yen and the dollar. If the dollar is weakening versus the yen, it means it takes more dollars to buy 1 yen than before. That's weakening. The yen is strengthening and the dollar is weakening. Or vice versa, the dollar is strengthening and the yen is weakening, which means it takes more yen to buy dollars. Okay, strengthening and weakening. So here, 100 yen to the dollar weakens to 1.25 yen to the dollar. The yen just weakened by 25%. It now takes 1.25 yen to buy $1. Okay, so the yen is weakening, the dollar is strengthening. The dollar becomes more expensive to the holder of the yen. Okay, this hurts U.S. investors if the yen is weakening and the dollar is strengthening. Okay, this will hurt U.S. investors who are investing in Japan, because when the U.S. investor sells their Japanese investments and they want to bring the dollars home, their Japanese investments will convert into fewer U.S. dollars. If you buy a U.S. investment and you don't pay dollars for it, you have to convert your dollars into yen and then buy the investment. You then sell the investment, and what do you get back? Yen, which you then must convert into dollars, and you will get fewer dollars for your yen at that point in time. The weakening yen will also hurt U.S. businesses that are trying to sell their products and services to the Japanese. Okay? The U.S. item, which is priced in dollars, now costs more for the Japanese buyers. All things being equal, the U.S. piece of equipment, if the yen weakens by 25%, that means a U.S. piece of equipment will cost Japanese consumers 25% more. Okay? This helps Japanese suppliers of the same good or service and Japanese investors investing in the U.S. So if the yen is weakening, that's good for Japanese investors who are buying foreign and investing foreign. And that's bad for U.S. investors that are buying in Japan and selling in Japan. All right, vice versa, a strengthening currency. It takes less of that currency to buy a unit of another currency. So if the U.S. dollar is strengthening, then it takes fewer dollars to buy yen. Okay? Example, 100 yen to the dollar strengthens to 90 yen to the dollar. So the yen has just strengthened by 10%. And now it only costs 90 cents to buy a dollar of U.S. It now takes fewer yen for the holder of yen to buy a U.S. dollar. This helps U.S. suppliers selling to the Japanese. So now the Japanese want to buy U.S. goods, because if the yen weakened by, or I'm sorry, if the, what are we saying? Yeah, if the yen strengthened by 10% versus the dollar, then that means that it takes 10% less for a Japanese consumer or business to buy a U.S. good, okay? Because the U.S. good is priced in dollars. All right, this also helps U.S. investors investing in Japan, because their Japanese investments convert into more dollars. So, if we are invested in Japan, we want the yen to strengthen, okay? If we are exporting to Japan, we want the yen to strengthen. We don't want the dollar to strengthen, okay? But if you're in Japan, you want the yen you do want the yen to strengthen if you are buying U.S. goods. Okay? But that makes Japanese producers selling into the U.S. less competitive. Okay, it hurts Japanese suppliers who are selling to the U.S. and Japanese investors who are investing in the U.S. Okay? So people who are proud of their countries, they want their currencies to weaken, to make them more competitive, selling overseas. And but if you are buying more stuff overseas, you want your currency to strengthen. Okay? All right, if one currency weakens relative to another currency, the other currency is by definition strengthening, as we said. For example, the yen is weakening while the dollar is strengthening, and vice versa. Okay, in example 2, the yen is strengthening while the dollar is weakening. So domestic investors, Japanese investors who invest abroad, want their domestic currency to weaken versus the currency of the country in which they are investing. All right? Domestic businesses that want their currency to weaken so that foreign goods are more, domestic in businesses want their currency to weaken so that foreign goods are more expensive for domestic buyers. If you are a domestic producer, then you want your currency to weaken because that means less competition from foreigners. Okay? And domestic goods are cheaper for foreign buyers. Okay? Okay. Let's see, where are we? How far do we go with this? 2 more slides. Okay, let's look at interest rates. Things that affect exchanges. Interest rates, currencies. Interest rates, higher interest rates attract capital and therefore strengthen a currency. If the United States raises rates compared to other countries, then people will want to invest in the U.S., and in order to do that, they will have to take their currency and buy our currency, which drives up the price of our currency. If a government wants to stop a currency from weakening, it should raise interest rates. If they want it to weaken, then they cut interest rates. Inflation. The higher the relative inflation rate, the weaker the currency. As inflation goes up, a currency becomes worth less. Okay? Exchange rates will adjust for rising prices, inflation, in order to maintain exports and imports. So inflation is held in check partly through international competition. Okay? Here's an example. If the price of a U.S. product rises faster than the price of a German product, so that's inflation, then the Germans will buy less of the U.S. product, and the Germans will demand fewer dollars. This will cause the U.S. currency to weaken because the Germans aren't demanding as much. Okay? And so you have that is the transmission mechanism between inflation and our currency. Inflation causes us to be less competitive by raising prices, which causes people to demand less of our currency, which causes our currency to weaken. All right, growth. The higher the growth rate of an economy relative to other economies, the weaker its currency will be. The stronger economy will demand more imports to meet its needs. So if we're growing a lot faster than China, then we will import more from China than they will import from us. Higher demand for imports results in higher demand for foreign currency. If we want to import more from China, we have to buy more of their yuans and then convert that, and that causes the yuan to go up, except that the yuan is manipulated by the Chinese right now. Okay? Bad example, probably you should use the euro and the yen. All right, so higher demand for imported products causes a higher or strengthening of the currencies from those countries. Okay? Then we have central bank intervention. In order to keep a domestic economy in balance, the central bank may attempt to strengthen or weaken their currency to affect trade. Okay? To affect the trade balance. All right, let's see, is that it? That is it. We've got one more clip and we'll be finished with chapter, what chapter are we on? Chapter 9. Woo, almost forgot. Shalom.